The first-class cabin of Flight 447 from New York to Los Angeles buzzed with the quiet efficiency of premium service. Leonardo DiCaprio settled into his window seat, grateful for the privacy after a grueling week of press interviews for his latest environmental documentary. He pulled out his script notes, hoping to catch up on reading during the 6-hour flight. 20 minutes before takeoff, a commotion near the boarding gate caught his attention. An elderly woman in her 70s, impeccably dressed but visibly distressed, was speaking animatedly with a flight attendant. Beside her stood a young girl, perhaps 10 years old, clutching a well-worn stuffed elephant. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," the flight attendant was saying, her voice strained with professional politeness. "But we can't accommodate seat changes at this time. The flight is completely full." Leonardo watched as the woman's shoulders sagged. The little girl tugged at her grandmother's sleeve, whispering something that made the older woman's eyes glisten with unshed tears. "Excuse me," Leonardo found himself saying, approaching the pair. "Is there a problem I might help with?" The flight attendant's eyes widened in recognition, but she maintained her composure. "Mr. DiCaprio, this passenger was hoping to sit with her granddaughter, but they were booked separately, one in first class, one in economy." Leonardo looked down at the little girl, who was staring at him with wide, curious eyes. Something about the grandmother seemed familiar, though he couldn't quite place her. There was an intelligence in her weathered face, a spark that reminded him of someone from long ago. "Take my seat," he said without hesitation. "I'll sit wherever the young lady was assigned." "Oh, we couldn't possibly," the grandmother began, but Leonardo was already gathering his belongings. "I insist. Family should fly together." As they made the switch, the little girl whispered loudly to her grandmother, "Grandma Rose, isn't he famous? He looks like someone from the movies." The grandmother, Rose, studied Leonardo's face intently, her expression shifting from gratitude to something approaching wonder. "You know, dear, you're absolutely right. He is very famous indeed." Settled into seat 23B, sandwiched between a businessman and a college student, Leonardo found himself oddly content. The economy section had a different energy, livelier, more diverse. Children chattered excitedly, couples shared snacks, and somewhere behind him, someone was quietly strumming a guitar. About an hour into the flight, the little girl appeared in the aisle beside his seat, her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm. "My grandma wants to talk to you," she announced with the directness only children possess. "She says she knows you from before you were famous." Intrigued, Leonardo made his way to first class, where Rose was sitting with a cup of tea, her hands folded gracefully in her lap. She looked up as he approached, and suddenly, the years melted away. He was 13 again, awkward and uncertain, standing in room 237 at John Marshall High School. "Mrs. Henderson," he breathed. Her face broke into the warm smile he remembered so well. "Hello, Leonardo. Though I suppose I should call you Mr. DiCaprio now." He slid into the empty seat beside her, his mind reeling. Rose Henderson had been his 8th-grade English teacher, the one who had seen something in him when he could barely see anything in himself. "I can't believe it's you," he said, shaking his head in amazement. You look exactly the same." She laughed, the same melodious sound that had made Shakespeare accessible to a roomful of restless teenagers. "Flatterer. Though I suppose that served you well in Hollywood." "Tell me everything," Leonardo said, settling back in his seat. "What have you been doing? Are you still teaching?" Rose's eyes sparkled with the enthusiasm he remembered. "Retired 5 years ago, after 43 years in the classroom. But I volunteer at the community theater now, working with young actors. Some things never change." "And your granddaughter?" "Emma. She's visiting me in California for the summer. Her parents thought she could use some West Coast influence. Apparently, I'm the cool grandmother who lives near movie stars." Rose winked. Little did they know how prophetic that would be. Leonardo chuckled, but then grew serious. Mrs. Henderson, I need you to know something. What you did for me, it changed my entire life." She tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" "The school play. Romeo and Juliet. You cast me as Romeo when every other teacher told me I was too scattered, too unfocused for the stage. Do you remember?" Rose's expression softened. "Of course I remember. You were terrified." "Terrified doesn't begin to cover it," Leonardo said. "I had never been on stage before. I was this skinny kid with bad skin and worse confidence. The popular kids laughed when you announced the casting. But you pulled me aside after class. I told you that acting wasn't about being perfect," Rose said quietly. "It was about being truthful. You said more than that." Leonardo's voice grew thick with emotion. "You said that I had something special, an ability to disappear into a character completely. You said most people act from the outside in, but I acted from the inside out." Rose nodded slowly. "I remember. You were so natural, so instinctive. Even then, you understood that acting was about finding the truth in fiction. After that play, everything changed. My parents saw me perform, and for the first time, they took my dreams seriously. I started auditioning, got my first agent, landed my first real role. But it all started in your classroom, with you believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." The flight attendant appeared with the beverage service, breaking the moment. After she left, Rose reached over and patted Leonardo's hand. "You know," she said, "I kept track of your career over the years. Every movie, every award. I was so proud, but I was never surprised. That spark I saw in you at 13, it was always there, waiting to ignite." "Do you know what the hardest part was?" Leonardo asked. "Those early years in Hollywood, when I was getting rejected left and right, when agents told me I wasn't leading man material, when directors said I was too intense, too method. I would remember your voice saying, 'Trust your instincts, Leonardo. The truth will always come through.'" Rose's eyes glistened. "And it did. My goodness, how it did." They talked for the next 2 hours, catching up on decades of separation. Rose told him about her other students, the ones who had gone on to become doctors, teachers, artists, and parents. She spoke of her late husband, who had been her partner in life and teaching for 37 years. Leonardo shared stories from his films, the causes he championed, the moments of doubt and triumph that had shaped his journey. "There's something I've always wondered," Rose said as they began their descent into Los Angeles. "That day you auditioned for the play, you were reading from a crumpled piece of paper. It wasn't the script I'd given out." Leonardo smiled, remembering. "I had lost the original script. So I went to the library and found a copy of Romeo and Juliet, the actual Shakespeare. I memorized the balcony scene in the original language." "Old English," Rose mused. "No wonder you sounded so different from the other boys. You weren't just reading lines, you were channeling the bard himself." "You taught me that," Leonardo said. "You always said that the best actors don't just read scripts, they live them, breathe them, become them." As the plane touched down, Emma appeared again, bouncing with excitement. "Grandma Rose, did you really teach Leonardo DiCaprio? That's so cool. Wait until I tell my friends." Rose chuckled. "Yes, dear. Though back then, he was just Leo, a bright, passionate young man who loved to tell stories." Leonardo knelt down to Emma's level. "Your grandmother is an amazing teacher. She taught me that stories have power, the power to change hearts, minds, and even lives." "Are you going to be in more movies?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I hope so," Leonardo replied. "But whatever I do, I'll remember what your grandmother taught me, that the most important thing isn't fame or money or awards. It's telling stories that matter, stories that make people think and feel and maybe even change the world a little bit." As they disembarked, Leonardo insisted on carrying Rose's bags. In the terminal, he turned to her one more time. "Mrs. Henderson, Rose, I meant what I said up there. Without you, I would have spent my life reading other people's words instead of bringing them to life. You didn't just give me my first role, you gave me my calling." Rose reached up and straightened his collar, the gesture so familiar it transported him back to his teenage years. "Leonardo, dear, you had the gift all along. I just helped you unwrap it." "I have an idea," Leonardo said suddenly. "My foundation is funding a new arts education program for underprivileged kids. We need experienced teachers, people who understand that every child has potential. Would you consider coming out of retirement?" Rose's face lit up with the same enthusiasm he remembered from her classroom. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. DiCaprio?" "I'm offering you a chance to change more lives," he replied. "Just like you changed mine." 3 months later, Leonardo stood at the back of a converted warehouse in downtown Los Angeles, watching Rose work with a group of teenagers from various backgrounds. She was directing them in a scene from Our Town, her voice carrying the same authority and warmth he remembered. One young actor, a 15-year-old from East LA named Miguel, was struggling with his lines. Leonardo watched as Rose approached him, her manner patient and encouraging. "Miguel," she said gently, "don't think about the words. Think about what Tony is feeling. He's saying goodbye to everything he's ever known. How would that feel?" The boy closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and when he began again, his voice carried the weight of genuine emotion. The other students fell silent, moved by the authenticity of his performance. Leonardo smiled, remembering his own breakthrough moment all those years ago. Some things, he realized, never changed, and that was exactly as it should be. After class, he approached Rose, who was gathering her notes. "How's it going?" he asked. "Wonderful," she replied, her face glowing with satisfaction. "These kids remind me why I became a teacher in the first place. They're hungry, talented, and full of dreams. Just like a certain 13-year-old I once knew." "Any future Oscar winners in the group?" Rose looked out at the departing students, several of whom waved goodbye to Leonardo with starstruck expressions. "Time will tell," she said. "But Oscar or no Oscar, each of them has something valuable to offer the world. My job is to help them find it." As they walked out together, Leonardo reflected on the strange circularity of life. A chance encounter on an airplane had reunited him with the teacher who had started it all, and now she was beginning new chapters in the lives of other young dreamers. "You know," he said, "I never properly thanked you." "For what?" "For seeing me before I saw myself. For teaching me that without great teachers, there would be no great students. For showing me that the most important role any of us can play is being ourselves, authentically and courageously." Rose stopped walking and looked at him seriously. "Leonardo, in all my years of teaching, I learned that the greatest reward isn't in the accolades our students receive. It's in knowing that we helped plant seeds that grew into something beautiful. Watching you succeed hasn't just been about your fame or your talent, it's been about seeing a kind, thoughtful young man become a kind, thoughtful adult who uses his gifts to make the world better." As they parted ways that evening, Leonardo realized that his success hadn't been built on a single moment of recognition or breakthrough. It had been built on countless small kindnesses, moments of belief, and the wisdom of a teacher who had seen potential where others saw only problems. The next morning, he called his publicist and asked her to arrange something special. 2 weeks later, Rose Henderson received an invitation to the premiere of Leonardo's latest film. But more importantly, the credits would include a dedication, "For Rose Henderson, who taught me that without great teachers, we would all still be reading the text instead of living the story." On premiere night, as the credits rolled and the audience applauded, Leonardo found Rose in the crowd. She was wiping away tears, her granddaughter Emma beside her, both beaming with pride. In that moment, surrounded by the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, Leonardo understood that his greatest achievement wasn't any award or accolade. It was the unbroken chain of inspiration that flowed from teacher to student, from one generation to the next, creating ripples of possibility that could change the world, one story at a time. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoy this video and learned a lesson. I would be grateful for your likes. Also don't forget to subscribe and comment on the video. See you soon.